Hello, the League of Women Voters White Bear Lake area welcome you to this virtual forum for the candidates running for Lake Elmo Mayor. This forum is not open to the public and is not being live streamed. The reason for that is to ensure minimal chance of cable interruption. It is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. In addition, local cable stations will replay this forum on a schedule determined by their station. Candidates, if for some reason your internet connection is lost, please call in using your phone. I'm Liz Nordling. I do not live in Lake Elmo, and I will be moderating this forum tonight. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, longtime, nonpartisan volunteer organization that encourages citizens to participate in government. Our mission is to support voter education and voters' rights. While the League studies and takes stands on issues, we do not support or oppose any candidate or any political party. The goal of our forums is for voters to learn more about the positions of the candidates who will be on the ballot on November 3rd. All candidates for this race were invited to participate in the forum, and our candidates are Justin Bloyer and Charles Cadenhead. Justin Bloyer and Charles Cadenhead. I'm sorry if I mispronounced. Candidates will give their opening statements in alphabetical order, and after that, questions will be rotated. So we'll begin with our opening statements, and we are going to start with Justin Bloyer.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm excited to be running to fill the seat of Mayor Pearson, with whom I've had the honor of serving alongside in our city for the last 8 years. Before that, my experience serving the city includes time on the Planning Commission as well as our Parks Commission. As a council member, I'm proud of many accomplishments, such as negotiating with 3M on a decades-old water fight, in which I successfully negotiated $2.7 million in cash and a potential $18 million in the land city waters fund. I was successful in negotiating the removal of the Met Council MOU, which was a document that put the Lake Elmo on the precipice of crippling fines and leading to possible annexation. I championed the Lions Park project, which began by tearing down an old dilapidated building, beautifying the grounds, and provided a pickle and volleyball court, hockey rink, new ball field with the first base line directly on the 45th parallel. This is an election where clearly experience does matter. The unpredictability of the current world around us demands stability at home. Leading the city is hard work. It is the type of hard work I've been doing for more than 10 years. I would be honored to continue to bring this experience to work for you as Mayor of Lake Elmo. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with his opening statement is Charles Cadenhead.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for all your volunteer efforts to engage voters and help them feel more informed. My wife and I and our family have lived in Lake Elmo for just over 15 years. We've chose to grow our family here in Lake Elmo because it feels more like the rural town that I grew up in southeastern Minnesota. I'm a civil engineer, got my bachelor's, I got my master's in infrastructure systems engineering. I've spent over 18 years in public government working on construction projects for large infrastructure, and I've worked the last 8 years in the private sector, giving me a unique vision on public and private partnerships. I've coached, volunteered in our community, and since my kids have grown past the point of VAA, I've still found my passion for working in the public sector, part of something I want to do. I currently serve as the chair on the Lake Elmo Planning Commission, and I look forward to sharing more details on how I can serve our Lake Elmo, the entire community that I'm thankful to be part of.
Thank you. We'll now move on to questions which were solicited from the residents of Lake Elmo on our website. And the first question goes to you first, Charles, and it's about water. How would you like to see the 3M settlement moving forward? And which of the DNR draft proposals do you support?
So I think that the task force that's been working with 3M for the city of Lake Elmo has done an exceptional job, and Justin's been a part of that in settling some of the things with the public land transfer and making sure that the houses and the residents in Lake Elmo will have clean water at their house indefinitely. whether it's through a charcoal system, granular filtration system, or or being hooked up to city water. I would like to see some attention to how we can make some of our lakes cleaner that are impacted by PFAS. So the question of the DNR, I'm not fully versed on the 3 options that are at the table right now, so I can't really answer to that.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
Thanks. I'm not familiar with the 2 alternate options, but I am familiar with the preferred option, and what comes down in reality in government is what the preferred option is, tends to be what's going to happen. What I can talk about with regards to the preferred option that I'm not okay with are things such as the Woodbury interconnect. The city of Lake Elmo designed its water system with PFAS in mind 20 years ago. We knew it was there, we were handling it, we were dealing with it. The Met Council mandated that we grow, and therefore we had to supply the water. The only clean sources of water are in the northern sector of the city, and we've designed all the infrastructure to get the water from the northern sector down to the southern sector. Now all of a sudden, the desire is to have us have the interconnect to Woodbury, which in the long term will bring us around to surface water use from St. Paul Regional Water Services, which I'm absolutely not in favor of. Once we give away our ability to control our water, we're being controlled by downtown St. Paul and the capital. I'm somewhat disappointed in the way the DNR issue is going because they're placing recreational water use in White Bear Lake ahead of drinking water in Lake Elmo. Again, this is just, I hope the lawsuit goes the way we want it to go, but I'm just incredibly disappointed and greatly concerned with the way the DNR and the water consortium, so to speak, has come up with things for Lake Elmo. Lake Elmo should not be penalized for having clean, available water, and I guess that's where I'm at. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any additional comments? Then we'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Justin. Have you personally been impacted by any of the current water issues?
Well, yes. I mean, I've been here my whole life. I'm living on the property that I grew up with. We had contamination just to the south of us. Fortunately, we're just to the north of the line. So I've had friends have their homes bulldozed and removed to for water treatment areas just south of where the Tri-Lakes are. But with water issues, you're referring to the contamination, not flooding. I just thought
It can be any of them.
Okay, yeah, the water issues, we've had friends that have had their homes torn down. We've had water issues with friends having to have water run to their homes, people having to bring in drinking water, Culligan bottles, that sort of thing. If you've been in Lake Elmo, as Charles says as well, we all know people that have been affected and friends that have been affected. We run, if I could bring a video camera down to our basement, we have 3 giant GAC filters that run nonstop, even though we're in the clean water area, we still run them. It's just part of living here, and it's something we need to get to the bottom of. And I think between the settlement that I helped secure and what we're doing with the other group, we're going to secure this for the long-term future for Lake Elmo.
Thank you. The question now goes to Charles Cadenhead.
Yes, so as far as my household being impacted by the water issues related to the 3M PFAS chemicals, it has not been affected. I'm north of the plume line, but as far as it being affecting the community and impacting my family as part of the community, absolutely. When I walk around and I talk to people, that's one of the top questions on their mind. They'd like to find out, how they're going to get hooked up to water, what kind of GAC filter they're going to get, how they can be assured that their family's not going to have chemicals in their drinking water. And so from that respect, it does impact.
Thank you. Additional comments, anyone? We'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Charles. How can the city deal with high water and flooding issues?
Well, interestingly enough, when you talk about high water and flooding issues, we've had the wettest 5 years on record, and certainly the water levels below the water table levels have risen appropriately. So we have clay soils in our area, so it takes a long time for the water to infiltrate down into the aquifers. We do have overland water flow. I know that there was a water study a number of years ago. I would like to make sure that we have some hydraulic engineers work with the watershed district, make sure we know exactly where the water is going, come up with a plan beforehand, before things get flooded, so we know how to act appropriately and we're not putting on a Band-Aid for a quick measure.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
Sure. I'm sorry if I'm muffled. We're trying to find a microphone to hook up for this, so somebody has to.
Okay.
I guess to answer the question, we are dealing with the surface water issues. I agree with Charles. We've had the wettest 5 years, obviously, on record, and that's another problem. As far as the flooding goes, we've done a lot to reduce flooding in downtown Lake Elmo. Prior to the development and the retaining ponds and whatnot, there were neighbors whose basements would flood. When we say flood, it was waist deep in their basements every single spring. We've done a lot to do that, to solve that issue. There's still a lot of water that runs off of the Shilkin property on the west side of town, and that will be dealt with at some point or another in the future. As far as the high water down at Lake Elmo Lake and the ponds that are flooding, what we've done is we've recognized this has been an issue. It's been doing this on and off for as long as development's been in Lake Elmo, 100 years. Met with all the residents of Lake Elmo Lake and the ponds that are flooding down there, and you just have to be honest with them. It's a long-term solution. There's nothing we can do. We can't hire somebody to come out and take a look at us and give a quick Band-Aid. We need to work with the intergovernmental agencies, Washington County, the Valley Branch Watershed District, the DNR, and ourselves to find a plan to put those bodies of water in where they're collecting the surface water and somehow get them into the pipeline that brings it down to the St. Croix River. Again, this is a long-term plan that would need to be put into place. City of Lake Elmo is having, in November, I believe it is, because it didn't work for October, we're having a workshop with County of Washington. Once they have a determination of what they're going to do with their flooding issues, they're going to work collectively with them to figure out a plan in cooperation with the Valley Branch to bring a solution. But it's going to be a long term. It's not going to happen next year. We're talking 5 to 10 years out before there's truly the problem has been solved.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
I would just say water is a difficult issue for the city. It needs to be addressed on a regular basis. It should be on top of mind when we have flooding of our residents' basements and their backyards where they can't use the land that they're paying taxes on. I also think that when we do developments and we're creating more impervious surfaces, we need to come up with some creative solutions to handle that increased water flow in our developments. Good.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Sure, absolutely. We hear a lot that the development has caused the surface water issues, and in fact, anyone who's been in Lake Elmo long term knows that the development, whether we want to admit it or not, is helping deal with it. All of the water that on both Shilkin's property that was funneled into downtown Lake Elmo now is put into retaining ponds on either the development or the municipal one that's been built. So the development is helping as much as we don't want to admit it, and that's going to help further up in the old village area. And we're going to need the Valley Branch, DNR, and Washington County to help us with the flooding down off of 30th Street and farther south.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Justin. What would your vision be in regards to the 2 new land uses added to the 2040 comp plan of mixed-use business and mixed-use business park south of 10th Street?
My vision?
Yes.
The way I try and operate as an elected official is we are the ones who set the rules for the game. We determine what the land use is. I mean, we know what mixed use is. And it is the developers and the landowners who decide what they want to put there. We've spent a lot of hard time, a lot of time with previous councils who wanted to share their vision of what somebody else's land should be. And all that does is run us into trouble. Again, my job is to set the table, set the rules of the game, and to make sure the rules are followed by the landowners and developers. I wouldn't want to go out and tell them what I want to see on their land, as long as it conforms with the zoning and the comp plan. It's their land to do with as they see and fit. Ideally, I mean, we'd love to see more commercial, but in order to have commercial, we have to have rooftops, and we've seen that in the old village. Without the rooftops, I mean, just the other day the coffee shop closed. We don't even have enough rooftops in the old village area to supply enough customers for a coffee shop. So we can't have this vision that we're just going to throw in a bunch of commercial or industrial or business parks, and it's going to be a success without having the rooftops. So it's a multifaceted approach to how we build the city. We've been doing a pretty good job over the last 8-10 years of moving forward on that plan.
Thank you. The question now goes to Charles Cadenhead.
Right, absolutely, and I agree with Justin about not determining how people can use their land. However, I do disagree that we need more rooftops in our city to handle more commercial and business use parks. We have great opportunities in some of our mixed use land that's near the 94 corridor, one that was really not driven through with the gold line and the Metro Transit that could have happened on Manning and 94 and created some transit-oriented development, which would have been great for our city. That would have been several years ago. It's in progress now. It's being designed. It will be constructed starting in 2024. Hopefully, we can get some commercial development down in that corner when the developer hooks up his water and sewer, and we could create some transit-oriented development that would create some jobs, create some business opportunities. We have plenty of land there. There's plenty of, I think we're ahead of schedule on the Met Council for residential development currently as it goes with our comp plan, or against the Met Council for our comp plan. We've added a lot of houses lately. Our tax base needs more business and commercial to catch up. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to take care of the things that we need to as a city for our residents.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Charles. It would have been great to have the transit-oriented development, and that didn't go through. I supported it, and it just didn't go through. As far as you're saying, we heard this before. We need, last 4 years ago, we put a moratorium in effect because we didn't need any more residential development, and we just wanted to go to commercial. We're not attracting any commercial development, and we have not met the critical mass yet that allows us to support commercial development. Right or wrong, I agree with Charles as well. We need commercial development, but we have to have a critical mass to get us to that point. We don't have the rooftops for that yet. We see that because nobody is volunteering to develop here.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Charles. The Stillwater School District purchased land in 2018 to build a bus terminal in Lake Elmo. The district began using this facility last fall, but connections to the city sewer lines were never made. Can you please speak to the bus terminal dealings that changed between April and July of this year, as reported in the St. Paul Pioneer Press?
Yeah, there's a lot of history surrounding that particular piece of property. And unfortunately, the school district made an agreement with the developer to have that hooked up, and that got hooked into the CUP. Now, I guess as I look at it, an agreement's an agreement, but I also think that there's some ability on the owner or the representative or the organization's part to have some flexibility and make sure that somebody's not negatively impacted where they weren't really making a negative impact previously. At least that's my opinion. Most of Lake Elmo, if not all of not all of Lake Elmo, is a taxpayer for the ISDA 34. Having that bus facility is key to getting the kids to and from school safely in our area. It also costs a lot of money to try and hire a contractor to come in and bus kids when they have to supply their own bus garage and facility. Having that saves the taxpayers of Lake Elmo money. I think something could have been worked out. It's currently going in, and I guess I just would have liked different outcome there.
Thank you. Question goes to Justin Bloyer.
Absolutely. Well, we do have 3 school districts in the city of Lake Elmo, not just the Stillwater district. The project that took place down there was a project, and that's how we have to look at it. I'm here to represent the city of Lake Elmo, not to represent the school district, not to represent the developer, but to represent the interests of the school, city of Lake Elmo. We had a number of options down there. We absolutely could have let it go forward without sewer. That would have rendered the whole parcel from Lake Elmo Avenue down to Manning Avenue as essentially unusable because there was no sewer and you were letting a non-sewered use go into a MUSA area. It doesn't happen. What we always have heard in the past is we need to hold the developers' feet to the fire. This council held the developers' feet to the fire, and I believe Monday of this week, the developer has signed on the addendum to the development agreement, and a letter of credit has come in. So the city is not on the hook for the additional $700,000 if they would have pulled the letter of credit to do that. And the developer is moving forward as of this week with sewer and the project. So by representing the city of Lake Elmo, holding the developer's feet to the fire, he has finally moved forward. We have the signed documents. We'll be voting on that in our next council meeting. What can I say? It was a contentious issue. It was unfortunate. We've heard all the discussion about the kids and this and that, but we as a city allowed an extension, allowed the buses to stay there until the school year had finished up. Then it was up to the school district who made the bad deal, essentially, with no contingency plans, to find alternate means of transportation for this year, which they did. Again, we held our feet to the fire and the project moves forward as it was promised and planned with no fiscal issues coming back on the taxpayers of Lake Elmo. So we're proud of that decision and we're glad that the developers decided to move forward.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
Sure. Yes, I understand we have 3 school districts in our city, but the vast majority goes to ISD 834. We have Oakdale, North St. Paul, and Montemita also inside our city. As far as, I had a great conversation with one of the previous mayors of Lake Elmo, and one of the tidbits of advice he gave me that I really hope to hold true is if you can help somebody out without hurting anybody else, then you should try and do it the best you can. So as far as holding the developer's feet to the fire, he didn't need any help having his feet to the fire. He doesn't get to sell his commercial property till he gets that water and sewer in. So he's putting his own feet to the fire.
Thank you. Additional comments, Justin?
Sure. The developer's feet were not held to the fire. He didn't have any incentive. He received the big payout from the school district, and he was on his way to, proverbial Hawaii with the money. We were allowing this to take place, and it's funny that an old mayor would say, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. You're hurting the city of Lake Elmo's taxpayers because you were going to put them on the hook for the additional money that would have cost to bring the sewer there. And you were hurting the potential development and tax base of the city down there because they had no incentive.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Justin. The Shilton Farm is considered a historic landmark in Lake Elmo. What do you see as a future for this beloved landmark?
As far as the Shilkin Farm goes, Mr. Shilkin, Pete Shilkin, is responsible for whatever development he wants to go there. We've tried as hard as we could to allow it to be a commercial horse barn that it just didn't work out. There were other family members involved and it wasn't up to Pete to do that. That being said, I would imagine any development that goes in there would have to retain the barn and all the historic features. That is essentially the gateway to downtown Lake Elmo. We've made that clear to every developer that's come in and tried to pitch plans. We've also had the last group that came in, it just what they were proposing wasn't acceptable, and we said we weren't going to move forward with that plan, and we're holding firm in the fact that that is a historic landmark in Lake Elmo, and being that the Shilkins want to see it saved, we want to see it saved as well.
Thank you. The question goes to Charles Cadenhead.
Absolutely. I love the Shilkin Farm barn there. It is a gateway into Lake Elmo. Even before I lived here, That's how I knew I was coming into Lake Elmo off of what used to be Highway 5. I think it's a unfortunate circumstance that the Shilkins weren't able to build their equestrian barn and board horses there. I think it could have happened. We've made other adjustments and zoning requirements in other parts of the cities, in other parts of the city to make people's dreams come through for cemeteries or what have you. So it certainly could have happened there at the Shilkin farm. And I'd like to do anything we can do to save that as an iconic historic measure, being over 100 years old.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Sure. The Shilkin equestrian barn could have gone forward with no problem whatsoever. That was an internal thing between the families, and it's unfortunate the Pioneer Press took and ran with it, not knowing the full story, and we continue to run with it. It's funny that the cemetery is brought up. That again was a legal use that was put into the plan, into the comp plan. And again, we have to follow what the rules are. We lost, and we lost at the appellate court, and there's nothing you can do to stop that cemetery from going forward. We have to follow the rules of the court.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, we'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Charles. If elected, what will your priorities be for your term?
We'll have several priorities. I think that first and foremost, you know, our infrastructure is key, and that's my experience, that's my expertise and my background. When I live in a development, I see great roads and I move in, and then they're not maintained to the level that they need to be maintained so that the long-term vitality of the roadway for the community that I live in isn't expertly taken care of. That bothers me. We need to have some, you know, financial resources in order to take care of the roads, the curb and gutter, the water, the appurtenances that we have in our city. If you put that up on an accounting board, the amount of money we have in our infrastructure, it will absolutely blow your mind. So I'd like to get a handle on how we're spending our money on our infrastructure. I think that we can do better savings when it comes to plan reviews, drawing reviews for our buildings. And I think we're losing out a little bit by hiring a consultant as much as we are for that type of work. I just want to be clear and transparent. Actually, the council's done a really good job at being calmer in the meetings and not getting in the paper and stuff like that. So I commend them on that, and I want to continue that.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
Thank you very much, Charles. Yeah, we spend $2 million a year on road upgrades, not including maintenance. When I got on the council, we were doing 570,000. Now we're doing 1.6 million in repair work every year. Our budget for roads is absolutely spectacularly large. I don't think we need to see improving that anymore. When I got on the council, there was no plan for road maintenance. It was just, as it got bad enough, the city would have to go out and deal with it. We have now, Jack, our engineer, has a schedule where we do the seal coating, we do the underlayment, we do all of the road functions at a designated time, so it increases the life expectancy of the road. As far as my term, what I'd like to see is just continuing what we're doing. We've started to rebuild the staff after the troubled period. We'd like to work on the flooding, which is long-term. We just want to see the city continue on the trajectory it is right now, a city where everyone gets along, where everything is moving forward. It really, there's minor things that it sounds like Charles and I just agree on that need to be done as we move forward. The big problems in the city have been overcome, and now it's just maintaining and taking care of the staff and making sure that we have good people working and everything can move forward. Finally, as far as the money goes coming into the building department, there's a lawsuit going on right now, and we are not allowed to make money off of our building department. So we have to be very careful. We have to be cost neutral as we're moving forward with that. So I agree, I don't want to see us outsource as much as we can, but this job market right now is just such that we cannot find a building official. So it's such we're stuck with the outsourcing until we do.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
Well, I would like to add, I agree with Justin that there does need to be some attention paid to the employees of Lake Elmo. It's a little astonishing to me the amount of turnover that we've had, and anybody running a business knows that when you lose people and you have to rehire as much as Lake Elmo has, there's something systematically wrong with the processes that we have going on. Just like to add that as part of that, and I think we both said we need some more businesses. I'd like to focus on that so we can increase our tax base without burdening the residential rooftops or more taxes.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Absolutely. We definitely had a systematic issue with hiring back in the troubled times. Right now, what we're dealing with is just truly the turnover. My wife is the director of human resources at the company, and they have hundreds of employees. All she does is hire and hire and hire. We cannot keep people in businesses anywhere, which is astonishing to me with the environment that we're in. But that's where we're at. We have a great staff, we have great leadership, and we just need to wait till this cycle we're in turns and we get more long-term committed employees.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Now it goes to you first, Justin. What is your understanding of the city's budget situation? How would you address state cuts that affect that budget? And if programs need to be cut or reduced, what programs would you reduce?
We don't have a budget issue in Lake Elmo as such. We just did our budget for next year. We actually had a $250,000 taxation we were going to put in place last year that was somehow missed at the county level. We didn't tax the residents the extra $250,000. And that was going to go into, I don't want to use the word slush fund because that's what it was. It was not. It was a vehicle replacement plan. We were planning on taking extra monies that we have in the surplus and holding that aside so we wouldn't have to borrow in the future. We decided not to raise taxes because we didn't feel that during the time of coronavirus that we would tax the residents anymore because people are having hardships out there, just to put into a fund for buying vehicles when we can get money so cheaply. And the Fed has said that they don't intend to raise rates. But right now, at the city level, we're not being impacted by anything. Our tax base is good. We've got new tax base coming in every year, and we're just not being impacted by it.
Thank you. The question now goes to Charles Cadenhead.
We absolutely will be impacted by the reduced taxes and fees and things that are coming because of this coronavirus. I know for a fact that state aid counties throughout Minnesota are looking at a 9 to 15% reduction in money that's going to be coming into their counties to take care of their infrastructure. So it's going to trickle down. Everything trickles down. It'll happen to the city, and we better be prepared to make sure that we're looking at the right cuts. So that, in fact, when we have it was noted as not counting a taxation twice that didn't happen. I'm still a little bit fuzzy on that math, or either the math is fuzzy. Comes down to when they're making budget cuts, they're talking about not replacing the hot box that patches the roads that are falling apart. So we're going to do $4,500 instead of replacing something that's needed for the Public Works Department to do their job well. I think we're missing the boat on making sure that our employees have the staff they need, the equipment they need to serve the residents of Lake Elmo well.
Thank you. Additional comments, Justin?
Sure. We pride ourselves in Lake Elmo as being one of the lowest tax cities if not the lowest tax cities in the entire county, not including townships. This is the decisions you'll have to make unless you just want to tax and tax and tax. Public Works and departments like that always have a wish list. And there's a wish list for a hot box. The hot box costs $50,000. We can fix the existing one for $4,000 and it can work for years and years and years. No one is losing any service or nothing being taken away from the residents by the fact that we're being frugal with the money and saying, you know what, we're not as flush as you want us to be. and therefore this new expenditure is not going to be made.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
I'm good, thanks.
Then we'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Charles. What do you feel needs to be improved in the city, and what would you do or change to make that improvement?
One thing I hear from a lot of the residents as I walk around our city is that they'd like to have more information about what's happening within the city and the government of city. And I think that's a really tough thing to get your hand around with the different generations of people that we do have in our city, from younger to older. We're pretty diverse. So doing it electronically for everybody doesn't work. You can't mail it out to everybody, but that's something I'd like to figure out how we can maybe do a better job of that. You know, if you go to the lakeelmo.org website, it lacks a little updating. You try and look at some old videos, or you try and pull up the minutes from old meetings. They're just not there. I do think that some of our staff are overworked, or they have too many responsibilities. I'd like to look into that and see what they have going on. So the communication piece, that's always comes down to working through problems, solutions, is good communication in amongst the staff and throughout the community. If you can have good communication and good dialogue, then I think a lot of things can be accomplished well.
Thank you. The question goes to Justin Bloyer.
Things to improve in the city. I'd like to see us find more ways to generate revenue in a unique way. We've just had the bike trails put in Sunfish Park. It's been a wide success. I don't know what we can do if we can encourage the school districts to host tournaments. Those are minor things, but I'd like to see that take place. I'd like to see residents use the parks and the lakes more. I'd just like to see more communal activities going on. We used to have Light Up Lake Elmo. That was my wife's and my favorite activity downtown. That was gone. I'd like to see these community events get put back in place. Kind of similar along the lines Charles was talking about, just, you know, not necessarily for information dissemination, but to get the people involved. And I think that's what's important. It's, you can see right now there's 2 of us running here. There's 3 running for city council. There should be more. We should have a packed planning and park commission. We need to get community engagement, I guess, is what my biggest thing is. And with that community engagement, not get people on the same page, but try and get more friendly interaction between neighborhoods. I've always said this is like a confederacy of neighborhoods, not a city. And we need a way to get away from that. We need to join everyone and make this into Lake Elmo, not Carriage Station, Tri-Lakes, Savona, those sorts of things. And that's what it's been the whole time I've been here, and what we're trying to work to get away from.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
Sure, it is a very diverse city with urban, rural, farming, lakes, but it's great. That's part of what makes it unique. And I think we do have some things in the comp plan that we can absolutely accomplish to give people a place to go and a place that makes them feel like they're worth. I believe there's a 15-acre park in the comp plan that's supposed to be in the old village downtown. If anybody hasn't read the book, Road to Nowhere, I recommend you read it. That's how we get communities back to being communities and not just neighborhoods.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
No, thank you.
Then we'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Justin. What does transparency in public office mean to you? How would you improve transparency?
Well, I don't know, my signs 4 years ago said transparency on it. I think we've come a long way for transparency in Lake Elmo from the bad times. We have all of our meetings are recorded, videotaped, played over TV, put online. We have the source that goes out, I believe it's twice a year now in print, is, Charles said, for a generation that doesn't use the internet as much. We've got a Facebook page. We're extremely transparent, so much so that the Valley Branch Watershed District doesn't use Lake Elmo anymore because we demanded that they record, videotape their meetings and disseminate that. So I think the one thing that Lake Elmo right now is not lacking is transparency. Down to anyone who wants to see our emails is obviously FOIA requests and texts and phone records can see anything. So the city of Lake Elmo is as transparent as it can possibly be, and I don't see that being an issue in Lake Elmo right now. I think everything's going well.
Thank you. The question now goes to Charles Cadenhead.
Yes, everything that happens within the government needs to be transparent because it's paid by the residents that live here and the businesses that live here. If they ask a question, it should be readily available. So we do have pretty good video. We do have some libraries. However, there are some old council meetings or some old minutes that the link just doesn't happen on the web page. That's something that needs to happen and be restored. I've worked in government for 18 years. I've had audits on construction projects. I've worked with residents as we're, redoing the road in front of their house. Best way to handle issues is sometimes people don't like the answer, but you got to give them the true answer. And that's really transparency, is just being honest and forthright. And when problems arise, working through them together.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Sure, because it's come up a couple times as far as old meetings and transcripts and whatnot. Charles just mentioned that we may be overworking our staff. Our staff is definitely, we're running a lean staff, and the things he's referring to are in boxes at the Parks building right behind Lions Park. That's the true response to it. If anybody needs to see something from 1992, we can most definitely have it dug out. But until we get the time and money to have it put onto the internet, the reality is there's decisions that have to be made on how to allocate funds, and scanning things from the Parks building is not one of the things right now that we find as a priority.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
Well, I'll just add this. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. None of our minutes are up for the whole year. It's really not that difficult to take the minutes that have been transcribed and given to the Planning Commission members at the course of the meeting to approve the previous minutes and have them on the link. I really don't think that's too hard to ask, personally.
We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Charles. Please share with us your involvement in community affairs, including organization memberships, leadership experiences, and accomplishments.
Sure, great. Well, ever since college, I've been involved with organization. I was the vice president of the University of Minnesota chapter for American Society of Civil Engineers. I've been with a few organizations since I've joined the professional arena, American Public Works Association, also the Minnesota chapter of that, where I currently serve on a technical resource and membership committee. I've coached with the SCVA since my kids were little, and been the head coach for football for 6 years, doing t-ball, baseball. My time's come up a little bit more, and that's why I'm really running for office. I love working in the public. I've done that with MnDOT. Leadership goes to organizing the RFP, the release of a project for Trunk Highway 212, which at the time was the largest construction project in the state at $238 million, and managed that construction staff that oversaw the contractor's work. When I went to Anoka County, I led the very first municipally led design build project. It came in at $40 million. I took that from beginning, pre-design, through procurement, through construction, and we brought that project, what was gonna take over the course of 8 years, we did that in 2 years, saving both the cities of Blaine and Coon Rapids significant impacts to their citizens, and also working with the watershed district, MnDOT, and the two cities, like I said. Also at that time, we had a $10 million contract with a consultant to help us out with the inspection on that project. In 2004, I was nominated for the Negotiator of the Year Award at MnDOT as a project engineer for the whole state, doing the most negotiations and saving the most money over the course of a construction season.
Thank you. Question now goes to Justin Bloyer. We've lost your audio.
Are you there?
Can barely hear you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Repeat the question, yes. Please share with us your involvement in community affairs, including organization memberships, leadership experiences, and accomplishments.
Excellent. Before I begin, I was quickly able to pull up the LakeElmo.org website, go to the Planning Commission, and all the agendas and minutes are there for 2020 trials.
Can I respectfully ask that you guys wait until Justin gets his microphone figured out? Because
Yeah, Justin, we can barely hear you. I think we can edit this out when it's
Sorry about that.
I can't hear you.
No?
Barely, just barely.
just barely.
Something just happened.
Are you guys there?
Oh, this is so much better. Excellent. Okay, let me reread the question and then you can start over again.
I'm good. I got the question now.
Okay.
So what I was going to say is quickly. While you were talking, Charles, I did look up on LakeElmo.org, and if you go to the Planning Commission, for instance, everything for 2020 is there. If you're specifically looking for the minutes, you would have to look into the agenda packet for the next council meeting, but minutes and agendas and packets are all online. But that being said, I've got a long history of doing things from college up till now. Most recently, I guess, being in Lake Elmo, I've been on the Rotary. I dropped that after being on the city council or mayor is a tremendous amount of time commitment that leads you to do only that and a couple other things that are connected with it. Being in Lake Elmo, I served as the Tri-Lakes president. I've served as the president of Lake Jane Association. Again, served in the Rotary. On the city council, I've served on the aviation committee that's been discussing the expansion of Lake Elmo Airport. From there, I was on the unions negotiation grievance committee at my work, and other civic organizations and sport organizations, from USSA, so the United States Ski Association, to USA Water Ski and the Minnesota Water Ski Association.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Charles?
I think I forgot to mention that I'm the chair of the Planning Commission currently, but I think I've said that before, so I'm good.
Okay, anything else, Justin? Then we're going to move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Justin, I believe. What qualifications do you think set you the most apart from the others seeking this office?
Simply put, it's just experience. I was in Charles' shoes 10 years ago. I was on the Planning Commission, although I wasn't the chair of the Planning Commission. I served on the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission. I can't imagine having gone from the Planning Commission to mayor of the town. It's just, there's so much that needs to be done in the meantime as a growing experience. That's the biggest thing that sets me apart. I have 8 years on the council, a year on the Planning Commission and Parks Commission. Served on all the committees and, have interactions with the county members, Valley Branch members, state legislators. It's a lot to jump into, and if Charles would be elected, I'm sure he would do fine after a while, but it's a steep learning curve, and the experience is really what it breaks down to on this election.
Thank you. Question moves to Charles.
Yeah, so I think my broad background being both on both sides of the wheel, being in government and working for private sector, gives me a unique perspective on what happens with business, both in and outside of a city. I've worked for a state organization where I dealt with legislative bodies, cities, counties, city councils, mayors. I've also worked for a county where we had our county commissioner board. We were responsive to, answer the questions. Some of those things became political, and so I know my way around that arena fairly well. Working in the private sector, I've led teams of 60 people for a transportation organization that's a international company, and currently work for an organization in which we have over 1,000 employees, and I'm the lead of the transportation section. So I think leading teams, bringing people together, listening, really listening, and getting to the bottom of the issues and working collaboratively with other people, bringing experts that know what's going on in the field, because I'm not certainly the expert in everything, and you need to find out who is to help you through the difficult problems.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
Sure. I think going off of what Charles said, if you look at the history of Lake Elmo over the last 8 years that I've been on the council, from the beginning where we had to appoint some members because people stepped down in the growth phase there, to the troubles for the, what was it, the 2 years there, working collaboratively with Washington County, with the DNR, with the Valley Branch, working with developers. Those are all things that need to be done, and you need to know the players, and you need to know how to interact with those people. And I think I've done a good job and led the city in a good way over the last 8 years.
Thank you. Additional comments, Charles?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Charles. Explain how collaboration and cooperation fit into the work of the council.
So certainly, as I've been watching city government, working with county government, working with state government, nothing ever gets done by somebody doing it alone. One of my strengths is working with teams of people, bringing the right people together to get the job done well. So when I've worked in construction projects, whether I've worked in a business environment, we get the right people together, come up with not always going to get consensus, right? So sometimes you're working towards getting consent. Not exactly what people are wanting, but they're okay with what the outcome is because it's closer to what they wanted than when you started. So you have to have some ability to flex with different organizations, different people, different communities. I know all the people that work at the Washington County Highway Department when it comes to roadways. I know a lot of the people at MnDOT that currently work on the roadways that surround our community. I've worked with watershed districts. I can collaborate with all those people. I've done it on projects successfully. So I'm not worried about that in the least bit.
Thank you. Question now moves to Justin Bloyer.
I think your question was the collaboration between council members on the council.
Explain how collaboration and cooperation fit into the work of the council.
Okay, absolutely. We went through a period of time in Lake Elmo where there was no collaboration and cooperation. It was ruled by fear, I guess, and that just didn't work. It doesn't lead to decisions that people trust or believe in, and that's what you need when you're working with the public and you're working as a public official. We need to be able to, exactly as Charles said, show the people why we're making a decision and how we got to that decision. A lot of the times they absolutely do not like the decision you're making, but as long as you can show the process and how you got there, that's what's important for the citizens. And a lot of times they still don't like it at that point, but at least you've done your due diligence, you've done the best, you've made the best decision you can with the information given to you, and you can point back to why you made the decision you did. And I think you need to be collaborative and cooperative as a body and with the people that you are serving as well, and that helps everything move smoother in your town.
Thank you. Additional comments, Charles?
And if you wanted to direct it directly to the council itself, absolutely, working collaboratively, just like any business forum plays into that. As long as people have thoughtful discussion, respect each other, keep from making off comments, and respect the discussion that other people are bringing to the table, you can have great dialogue. And I think that's what we need to move forward and generate within our community.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Justin?
No, I couldn't agree more.
That was our last question, and we will now move to closing statements, and we're going in the reverse order of opening statements. So we will start with Charles Cadenhead.
Well, so I hope you learned a little bit more about my experience, my style of leadership, feedback that I consistently hear from my colleagues, friends, kids that I've coached is that I'm a good listener and that I understand complex systems, issues, and engage the stakeholders that are involved. I break them down into solid processes, leverage the experts in the areas, build the best team, hold people accountable, and have a good presence for whatever issue is at hand. I also believe in praising people in public and addressing conflict or performance in less public forums. This builds trust, encourages all parties to perform their very best to serve others. I look forward to earning your vote so I can confidently and humbly serve our Lake Elmo. Thank you again to the White Bear Lake League of Women Voters for giving this opportunity and hosting this forum.
Thank you. Now with his closing statement is Justin Bloyer.
Thank you. This is a different mayoral election than in past years. Lake Elmo finds itself in a good position that did not happen by accident. It came from 8 years of hard work. The city no longer must fear losing its insurance. We are not facing a $13 million potential deficit from a moratorium. In fact, we have become quite boring. Chaos over the past years has been replaced by transparency, civility, and teamwork, leading to accomplishments such as being part of the Washington County Library System, improved and expanded public safety. We have begun planning a new city hall and fire station, a DNR-approved well, providing new source of healthy, safe drinking water. We have improved relations with critical partners such as Washington County, Met Council, and the DNR. In fact, the 2040 comp plan implementation was the first time in recent history of Lake Elmo a comp plan was implemented on time, all being done with transparency, community input, and buy-in from our citizens. Not two council members sitting in a smoke-filled room. Those aforementioned established good relations, we were able to work with the Met Council and MPCA to delay implementation of a $15 million septic system in Hamlet neighborhood, allowing them to hook to city services at a fraction of the cost. Finally, Sunfish Park, the crown jewel of Lake Elmo, a nature center and a state-of-the-art bike trail system was championed by me, which is sure to bring economic inflow to our bars and restaurants in the Old Village. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for coming forward to run and speaking to voters about issues. Thank you to our viewers for watching and for your interest in being informed voters. We will put all of our
I think we just lost Liz.
channels. You will find links to recordings for www.lwv-wbla.org. You can request an absentee ballot now from the Secretary of State's website, which is minvotes.org. If you need to register to vote or update your registration, you can also do that online or when you go to vote. Make your voice be heard in the general election by voting by November 3rd. Thank you.
Thanks.